Yeah, welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the stories and experience that shape who we have become. Our today's guest is Valerie Greene, a relationship mentor, coach, and author. Valerie helps couples stop fighting and fall in love again, empower women to inspire deeper intimacy, and guide singles to attract their ideal partner. Her approach transforms conflicts into connection and help people create lasting love. It's really a pleasure having the show, Valerie.
You. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here, Aro. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So, Valerie, what were some of the moments or challenges that shape you into who you have become today?
Yeah, and I share my story a little differently each time. Today what's coming to me is that, I was raised in a very kind of competitive environment, the best school district in Long Island, and I happen to be very intellectually smart, but also incredibly emotionally intelligent. From a very young age, I've been a very deep empath. My parents were extremely loving, but just due to their own, no fault of their own, they weren't able to be emotionally supportive like I needed. So I didn't actually receive empathy in a way that worked for me until I met my ex husband when I was 29. And he gave me empathy for the first time. And it was like foreign to me. And because I grew up feeling confused and alienated, because this is really what feeds me is deep connection and emotional connection and a secure attachment and partnership and attunement. And that's really what makes me come alive. And before that, I just kind of felt like I was confused about why I was here. I was confused about what I was about and why I didn't feel fulfilled, even though I was told that I should be happy. But I wasn't, I was just confused and alienated until I finally received empathy. I remember the moment that I first, was able to know even what it was. It was and this is what made me fall in love with my ex-husband, because I thought that that's just what love was, and we still love each other to this day. We're still friends. Now I'm happily married to somebody who is more right for me, but it's like because I'd never received empathy, I just didn't even know what else wasn't there, because it was such a huge experience for me, a huge breakthrough. He was going through something actually, and I responded the way that I was taught to respond my whole life, which was to fix things. And like he was just, I don't remember what he said. It was whatever. I'm 47 now. This is when I was 29. But he said something like he was going through something difficult, and I was just look on the bright side, and he was just like, well, thank you, and I could really use some empathy. And I'm like, what's that? Like he was like, well, you could say something like, that must be really hard. What's it like for you? How do you want me to be with you? And it was just like, I was like, what? I've never said anything.
Yeah,
It was just a game changer, and it became this new water I wanted to swim in. And, I just devoured books about secure attachment and emotional attunement and realized that this was my purpose, because that was my transformation. I was already doing coaching, but it had really landed with me that the biggest transformation that I had with people was supporting them in their own emotional awareness, but it hadn't really landed on me like that this was the thread underneath what I'm really good at giving too, because I hadn't even known what it was.
yeah, and amazing. So, why do so many successful women have struggles in love, and how can they attract the relationship they truly want?
Yeah. So I mean, long story short, after that, I really did this deep dive into what makes people not have successful relationships, because I'd always actually attracted good quality people into my life because I am an empath, and I knew how to tell whether people were emotionally safe. But I didn't know how to make relationships last. So that's what I really dedicated myself to. And I studied with Sue Johnson and John Gottman and the Relationship Coaching Institute and got all this training. And in that process, I worked with thousands of clients, and I distilled the truths, in my opinion, about why people aren't able to attract or maintain lasting love. And so one of the common denominators that I keep running across is, and most of my clients are women, which is why I speak to this. It applies to men too, but specifically women who have this core of what makes us happy, which is emotional connection in a relationship. When we really slow down, we want to feel like our man has got our back, and we're with somebody, it's this archetype of a man that we all long to be with if we're successful, of a man who's successful too, who can really meet us intellectually and in our ambition, but who's also emotionally available and can make us feel like we have our backs emotionally. And most women don't want to settle for a transactional relationship just with somebody who you feel met with on an ambition way, but there's no real romance. So what I notice happening with women that are successful is they bring their ambition to the relationship.
Mm.
And that's not a problem, right? Like, obviously, ambition is a good thing. It's just that there's masculine energy and feminine energy, and we're not taught to embody our feminine energy. And a man who's ambitious is going to want a woman who is also ambitious because he wants to feel met. But, at least a quality man isn't going to want a woman who's just submissive. But he wants her to be in her feminine energy because that's what creates the passion and the polarity. Meaning that we know how to have empathy, and we know how to be vulnerable, and we know how to slow down and talk about our feelings instead of just where we want to go. And we know how to collaborate rather than control the situation. And instead of speaking in a way where we're being directive and telling people what to do, we're speaking in a way that we're, hey, this is how I'm feeling and this is what I'm needing. And what do you think? Let's make a decision together. And that is what feminine energy is. And that's what I also had to learn to have, which is why it's one of my favorite things to teach, because I was raised to be a human doing.
Yeah.
And to be really ambitious, with the goals that I wanted to accomplish. But that never made me happy either. And so, interestingly enough, even with my ex-husband, I attracted men that were not as ambitious just because I was carrying more of the masculine energy, the goal setting, or
Yeah.
but then I wasn't happy. And, my ex-husband is a wonderful person too. We're still friends, but, it's just that I needed to be with somebody who had more masculine energy, which is what he and I talked about too when we were married. And there were a lot of incompatibilities that came out that we talked about and processed, which was my other breakthrough, which was really learning that unconditional love is possible. I really healed my blocks to unconditional love with my ex-husband because we learned how to turn conflict into intimacy through really listening deeply to our feelings and needs and really clarifying what we wanted until we decided together that we actually wanted different things. And that process is what helped us to transition our relationship into a friendship. Really the skill that I had to learn, since I knew that I wanted to be with a man who had more masculine energy, was how to really embody my feminine energy, which doesn't mean that we can't be ambitious, but it just means that it's a skill to learn to slow down, to feel our feelings, to stop trying to control the agenda, and to trust that if we collaborate with an ambitious masculine energy man, that he'll want to actually make decisions in collaboration that work better for us so that we don't have to row the boat so hard. It's really like a lot of women have blocks to actually receiving and trusting, which I did. And so that's a lot of what I help my female clients overcome and learn how to be emotionally available to ourselves. Because I'm still overcoming that. Like, I used to, when I was, because I was raised without emotional attunement, and, I didn't even know what it was. And, it was just the culture I grew up in. It wasn't like my parents were malicious. They just were more encouraging, look on the bright side kind of attitude, as opposed to really sitting with unpleasant feelings, which makes sense, right? Like, our culture isn't really designed for that.
So how can someone break the cycle of attracting unavailable partners?
Yeah, which is a wonderful segue to what I was about to say, which is that, like, what I tell my husband is that the answer is in the feeling. Like, if I can sit, and this goes with Jill Bolt-Tiller's research, that if you sit with an emotion for 90 seconds, it shifts and gives you deeper insights. We think we're going to get swallowed up by it, and it's like an abyss that's going to take us down. But if we maintain a sense of mindfulness, like who I am is the compassionate observer of the feeling, then I receive insight and guidance as to what to do inside the feeling. And that's the skill that I had to learn and the one that I teach. For example, if I'm really struggling and I try to figure it out with my head, like I'm struggling to make a decision, for example, I'm going to write a proposal after this to teach a workshop. I could muscle through it with my head, or I could tune into the feeling of passion and say, what does that feeling want to say? Like, what is What is the truth inside the feeling? But it's the same with sadness. Like, what do I want to let go of? What do I need to believe to let go of it? And allowing that to take me through. Or even anger. Anger is about boundaries. What boundaries do I want to create? What standards do I want to stand up for? Right? So it's like if we can sit with the feeling, it gives us a message about what to do. And that's the thing that people who keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners, that's the skill that's missing. Because people who keep attracting unavailable partners, it's just that if we have the skill of sitting with our feelings, as opposed to, because I find that people that attract unavailable partners, it's not a pathology or like something wrong with you. It's just a skill that's underdeveloped. And instead of really learning how to tune into the message underneath your feelings, like how do I feel? What is my intuition telling me about whether this person is emotionally available? What questions do I ask to be able to tell if this person's right for me? How do I feel with them? What's the message of that feeling? That's the skill to build. Instead, they have their attention on how do I make this other person like me? Are we having fun? Let's just keep going with the fun feeling. I don't want to be a buzzkill. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to ruin what feels good, And that's great, right? Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't have fun in relationships. It's just a skill to balance that attitude, especially on a first date. It's supposed to be fun, right? If it's not fun, then what's the point of keeping going? When you're and you need moments of fun throughout, right? But at the same time, it's important to pause and ask, how am I feeling? Is this person, do they share my values? Do they share my, does it feel safe to share my deepest dreams with them? Do they seem like they're open-minded and accepting? What happens when I sort of test and share something a little bit vulnerable? Can they hold it, or do they dismiss it? And it's like an art of vetting, but first we need to be comfortable feeling our own feelings. Because if we're not emotionally available to ourselves, if we sort of repress our own feelings or push through or power through or tell ourselves to look on the bright side instead of really fully getting the message and the feeling, then we're going to attract somebody who treats us the way we treat ourselves. So it's really learning the skill of emotional attunement, both with ourselves and with other people, that I find when I work with singles and I teach them how to do that, then they start to enjoy the dating process. Because instead of like enjoying it in the beginning and then crashing and burning, it becomes more sustainable. Like they're like, oh, I'm enjoying discovering this person. I'm enjoying this tension that gets created between, I don't know if they can really hold me or not, and let me play with it. I can date multiple people and get my needs met in different ways and see who's actually right for me rather than try to get this person to like me. So it's just a paradigm shift that I really enjoy helping people make.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So, what are the most impactful steps for building trust and emotional connection in a long-term relationship?
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, I really like to distill it to concepts that the attachment researchers have clarified, and you can Google this too if you want to learn more about it. So the two concepts are how to be a safe haven for each other and how to be a secure base for each other. Those are sort of the buckets of behavior, that create emotional safety in a long-term relationship. And it's a skill set and it's a belief system, because you'll see what the beliefs have to be in order to really do these skills. So what it means to be a safe haven is that when I share a feeling that's either pleasant or unpleasant, that the other person will respond with empathy, compassion, attunement, care, presence. They're not going to dismiss me. They're not going to tell me it's ridiculous. They're not going to argue with the feeling. And that we speak to each other in a way where we trust that we're on the same team. That we're not making each other wrong or blaming each other, that I'm able to express my feelings and needs in a way that is not combative. Like that if I don't like something, I'm going to say, hey, I don't like this. Let's come up with something together, not you did it wrong and you're a bad person kind of energy.
Yeah.
And it's really holding each other in this attitude of, I trust you have a positive intention. Even if I felt hurt, I'm going to say, I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but I felt hurt, and let's really process this together to make sure that we learn what to do differently together. It's this attitude that we're on the same team, and that nobody's really able to do this all the time. I'm not, when we recognize we're not, we know how to repair. I apologize. I acknowledge the impact. We brainstorm what we're going to do differently next time. We keep learning together. We forgive. So that's the basis of what it means to be a safe haven. And
Yeah.
obviously the beliefs that like conflict can bring us closer and it's safe to be vulnerable. And, there's a lot of accompanying beliefs. A secure base it's a term that the attachment researchers, it actually starts in the developmental window because the secure attachment is a paradigm around how we first learn to develop bonds with our parents when we're little. And then it's the same strategies that then we use to create bonds as an adult. So the secure base actually starts when we're toddlers. If our parents had the holy grail of skills, which is that the toddler can kind of like adventure away from the parent, but come back and the parent's still there. It's this, ooh, I can go
Yeah.
away and I'm safe. Back and I'm safe. So it's this, if that went well, then we know how to be a safe haven. If it didn't, we have some healing to do so that we can do this for each other. It's this simultaneous holding in a romantic relationship of we hold our dreams together. We know we're going. I know the deepest dream in your heart. I trust you that even if you achieve your dreams and go away from me, you'll come back and report back to me. And I have the finger on the pulse of what is alive for you, what's important for you, where you're going, what your values are, what your dreams are. And I'm supporting you in that, even if it means I don't get to be with you all the time, even if it means you're going to go away and come back, like that I want you to grow into your full potential and you want me to grow into my full potential and that we can create more together than we could on our own. And that's actually what keeps the passion alive. Because if you just try to like be joined at the hip
Yeah.
and you're only doing the safe haven, then the passion dies. I think Esther Perel talks about this the most in her book, Mating in Captivity, that if you're too close, then there's no desire. Because desire means you can't desire something that you already have, right? You can appreciate something. Yeah. But you need to kind of like go off in the world and be ambitious on your own and create your dreams and take risks and come back and know that if you fail, you'll get that emotional support and you'll get the encouragement. But you both have the trust in each other that you can create more together than you could on your own, and that you're going your separate ways and coming back and sharing with each other and making time to share with each other. I think love languages also map onto this, because if you're really going to be a secure base for each other, then you also know how to speak each other's love language, that like when you come back together, you create quality time. You give each other little gifts if that's important. You do acts of service, or you say words of affirmation, etc. Or touch each other when you come back, because it's these touch points that then make the going away feel more exciting, that that you're going to feel loved when you come back. So that's like the art of attunement. And, it's easier said than done, which is why when I work with people, when I work with couples, I usually give them an assessment of all the different areas of the relationship and how satisfied they are with each one. Because it is all these pieces that fit together that really create this feeling of lasting love over time. And, that's why they say it is work, but I think it helps to know the framework so that the work can become more streamlined, not so overwhelming.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I think this is really not just lovely hearing you make reference of, I'll be more like a safe haven for each other and secure bees for each other. Yeah, your analogy to it really speaks for them. It's really lovely. But what more like, I think I've actually read some particular kind of book, and sometimes I wonder that what was love like in the 80s and 90s compared to what love is now? It seems there's a whole lot of change owing to the industrial area and a whole lot of things changing into it. So what will make reference in respect of that? Because some may still find it difficult when it comes to the emotional attachment in respect of it. And I don't. So what would be your thoughts in respect of that?
I know it's crazy, like, because I think probably more people have insecure attachment now than they did back then. I mean, I was born in '78, so I was a kid in the '80s and '90s, so I didn't really like have a mature perspective on adult relationships back then. But it was a lot simpler, because even though roles were changing, they were still pretty well defined, especially with gender back then, which was restrictive for a lot of people. So I'm glad that we have a lot more freedom now to choose. But it does make things more complicated, meaning that we can't make assumptions anymore about what people want. We can't assume that people want marriage. We can't assume that they want monogamy. We can't assume that they want secure attachment. We can't assume that they want, to be a specific gender or sexual orientation just because of how they look. And it creates a lot more freedom, which I think is a good thing, but it also creates a lot more complications, so that when I coach singles, and this is actually what my book is about, I wrote a book called The Commitment Roadmap, and it's really how to inspire somebody. It's written for feminine energy women to inspire a masculine energy man, but the principles would apply, I would say 90% to all genders and all sexual orientations and all, usually there's only sexual, masculine or feminine energy depending, that regardless of gender or sexual orientation, because it's just whether we're programmed or like our core nature is more goal directed or more feeling oriented. And all of us have both, right? It's just like, what is our inclination? But so in my book, I really teach that it's so much more important now than ever to get crystal clear on your vision, what you want your ideal relationship to look and feel like, because you can't assume that anybody wants, there's no default template anymore.
Yeah, so true. So true. No default
And
template anymore. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like now that you know what you want, like who do you need to be and what skills do you need to build in order to attract the partner that you want to attract, and then what's the archetype of the partner you want to attract, and how do you then vet people, what are their values and vision, how do you vet people, where do you meet that kind of person, and you develop a whole plan, and then how to then master the art of dating multiple people so that you find out through learning whether somebody actually has these qualities, and then don't become exclusive until somebody really shows you that they want what you want and that they have the qualities to be emotionally available or whatever it is that you're vetting for. But at the same time, obviously, it's about having fun along the way and creating authentic
Yeah.
connections along the way. You're not just like testing people, right? So it's a real art. And that's what my book is about. And that's, of course, what I do with my one-on-one clients, because I think that things getting more complicated does increase opportunities if you know how to find them.
So from audience who would love to learn from you to get your book off or coaching section, how can they reach out to you and where is the best platform?
Yes, thank you. So my website has everything on it. The book is under the products tab, but I also have 4 free gifts, which is under the free gifts tab. And those are like 20-page ebooks, depending on whether you're single or you're married and arguing, or, I have different free gifts that you can see. So my website is coachvaleriegreene.com. So you can see my name if you're watching it. It's Valerie, VALERIE GREENE. There's an E at the end of Green, and Coach, COACH, Valerie Greene. And so if you go to that website, then if you want the free resources, my social media tabs are there at the bottom. I have free resources, and then I also have, if you go to the products tab, that's how you find out about the book. It's called The Commitment Roadmap. It's a PDF. I sell it on my website. I'm just, doing being ambitious in other ways right now rather than publishing it more widely. But I wrote it in 2018, so it's just I've sold about like a little under 1,000 copies that way. So it's kind of
Yeah.
doing its job, but obviously I'll do it more
Yeah.
there eventually.
Listen, thank you so much. Well, thank you. Your story just reminds us that that love, mercy, and emotional connection are skills we can learn and nurture. Your work actually more like help people transform relationship from conflict to closeness or partnership that are fulfilling and lasting. And it's really a pleasure having you on the show. Now, for my audience who would love to reach out to Valerie, the link is going to be on the show notes so that you can easily more like I'll get some of her resources, reach out and follow her on various platforms too. Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, Valerie.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, this was really
Thank you.
fun.